If you searched Carolina headache, you might be trying to name a pain that feels too intense, too frequent, or too weird to ignore. And here's the first surprise. That phrase is not a standard medical diagnosis, which means the real issue may be hiding behind the wrong label. Some people mean migraine. Others mean a brutal one-sided attack around the eye that sounds more like cluster headache. Others just mean a recurring headache that's taking over sleep, work, mood, and patience. The name may be fuzzy, but the suffering is absolutely real, and it deserves a clearer explanation. That matters because when the label is off, the self-treatment is often off too. You may keep chasing dehydration, stress, or sinus pressure, while the actual pattern keeps repeating like an unpaid bill that keeps showing up every week, draining your time and energy. So in this video, we're decoding what Carolina headache might actually mean, how to spot the clues, when to stop guessing, and what steps can help you move from random pain to a smarter plan that finally makes sense. Let's start with one simple truth. Not every strong headache is the same story. Migraine, tension headache, sinus-related pain, medication overuse headache, and cluster headache can overlap enough to confuse almost anyone at home. Especially when symptoms change from one attack to the next, that confusion gets expensive fast. You lose focus, cancel plans, stare at screens like they're enemies, and start building your day around the possibility of pain. A headache stops being a symptom and starts acting like a boss that controls your schedule and steals your confidence. If the pain is throbbing, comes with nausea, or brings strong light and sound sensitivity, migraine moves higher on the list. If it is severe, one-sided, centered around one eye, and comes with tearing, a blocked nostril, or restlessness, cluster headache deserves attention right away. And if you keep saying it's probably nothing while the pattern keeps returning, that is the real trap. Repeating headaches are not a personality flaw, not weakness, and not something you should automatically normalize just because you've learned how to function through them. One reason people search strange phrases like Carolina headache is because pain is hard to describe. You know it hurts, but you may not know whether the pain is pressure, stabbing, pulsing, burning, or drilling behind the eye, temple, forehead, or neck. Start noticing the pattern like an investigator, not a victim. Which side is it on? How long does it last? What time does it hit? Does movement make it worse, or do you feel so restless that sitting still feels impossible during the attack? These details matter more than most people realize. Migraine often brings nausea and sensitivity to light or sound, and it can last for hours or longer. Cluster headache often ramps up fast, stays one-sided, and may come in repeated attacks during a cluster period over days or weeks. The body drops clues before the diagnosis arrives. A watering eye, drooping eyelids, stuffy nose on one side, visual aura, or repeated attacks that wake you from sleep are signs that deserve more than guesswork, especially if they keep coming back. Here's the breakthrough moment. Your headache may feel chaotic, but it often follows a pattern, and pattern is power. Once you see the rhythm, you stop treating every attack like a random storm and start reading it like a map you can actually use. Think of your brain like a financial system sending alerts. Migraine may be like a market crash with sensory overload, where light, sound, smell, and nausea all spike at once. Cluster headache can feel more like a fire alarm going off in the same corner of the house, again and again. That is why blanket advice fails. Drink more water may help some headaches, but it will not fully explain why someone gets repeated one-sided attacks around the eye with tearing and intense agitation. Different patterns usually need different treatment plans, not recycled internet guesses. So the real win is not becoming your own specialist overnight. The real win is learning enough to describe the attack clearly, avoid false assumptions, and get the right level of medical care sooner, with less confusion and less wasted trial and error. Now let's talk action first. Keep a simple headache log for at least 2 weeks if you can. Record the time, duration, side of the pain, severity, other symptoms, sleep, meals, stress, and what you took for relief, so the pattern becomes visible on paper. Second, notice your top triggers without turning your life into a detective board. For some people, it's missed sleep, dehydration, alcohol, stress swings, screen strain, or certain foods. The goal is pattern recognition, not perfection, obsession, or panic about every little variable. Third, watch your medication habits. Taking pain relievers too often can create a rebound cycle in some people where the fix starts feeding the problem. If headaches are frequent, it's worth asking a clinician whether your current strategy is quietly backfiring over time. Fourth, if the symptoms sound like migraine or cluster headache, ask for a proper medical evaluation instead of endlessly self-diagnosing online. A clinician may use your history symptom pattern, and sometimes imaging to rule out other causes and build a more targeted plan. There are also moments when you should stop watching videos and get urgent medical help. A sudden thunderclap headache, the worst headache of your life, weakness, trouble speaking, confusion, fainting, high fever, stiff neck, or major vision changes should never be brushed off or waited out. Those warning signs matter because some headaches are secondary, meaning they can come from something more serious than a primary headache disorder. Most headaches are not emergencies, but the dangerous ones are dangerous precisely because people delay, downplay, or hope the symptoms will fade on their own. If pain is new, escalating, waking you repeatedly from sleep, happening after a head injury, or changing along with neurologic symptoms, that is your cue to act faster. Do not try to win an endurance contest with symptoms that are raising red flags for urgent evaluation. Being calm is good. Being informed is better. The smartest health move is not pretending everything is catastrophic, but also not pretending every severe headache is just stress, weather, or a bad day when your body is clearly asking for help. If your Carolina headache turns out to be migraine, treatment can include acute medicines taken early, prevention strategies for frequent attacks, and lifestyle habits that lower the overall load on your nervous system. Good treatment is usually a system, not a single trick or supplement. If it sounds more like cluster headache, the conversation changes. Cluster headache is rare, intensely painful, and often needs a more specific plan from a clinician who understands the pattern. This is exactly why naming the headache correctly matters so much for relief and daily function. Either way, your goal is not to become fearless overnight. Your goal is to reduce uncertainty. When you know what the pain looks like, what tends to trigger it, and what steps actually help, the headache loses some of its power over your day and your decisions. And that shift is huge emotionally. A person in pain does not just need relief. They need a roadmap, a little control, and proof that they are not imagining the disruption this kind of headache can cause to work, relationships, sleep, and confidence. So here's the bottom line. Carolina headache may be a search term, a local phrase, or a personal label, but it is not the end of the story. The better question is what type of headache pattern is hiding underneath it, and what your symptoms are really saying. Pay attention to location, timing, symptoms, triggers, and red flags. Use that information to start a better conversation with a healthcare professional, especially if attacks are severe, frequent, or changing. Guessing less is often the first form of relief and the first step toward better care. This video is for education only and is not a medical diagnosis or a substitute for professional care. If you have emergency warning signs or a sudden severe headache, seek urgent help right away instead of relying on online content, home remedies, or comment sections. If you want more simple, practical videos about headaches, migraine, and health problems that actually affect daily life, subscribe to the channel. And if this helped, drop your questions, comments, or suggestions below so we can build the next video together and make the next one even better.